In this podcast, you'll learn when to use for me and when to use to me. We also warn you about expressions such as respectfully. I don't mean to be rude, but, and please don't be offended. That should put you on your guard because you should be suspicious of what comes next. Welcome to this week's episode of
Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig.
Hi, I'm Reza.
And my name's Craig.
And with nearly 50 years of teaching between us, we'll help you improve your English and take it to the next level. How's it going, Craig?
It's going very well, thank you, mate. I'm feeling good, really happy to be podcasting again with you this week. How are you doing?
Same as you, I love podcasting, so I've got a spring in my step. I'm raring to go, and I'm really looking forward to this episode.
That's fantastic. So we're going to begin with some good news because Mamin from Badajoz has passed her language school exam.
Hi Reza, hi Craig. I'm Mamen from Badajoz. I want to tell you that I passed my exam for the first level of B1 at the official language school, and I am very happy. I didn't have enough time to study because I have to study for my competition exam. The podcast has helped me very much. I like your tips to improve my English. In the summer, I want to work my listening and oral English skills. Before the pandemic, I began to go out with an English meetup in my town. But now, it's impossible. Could you recommend me online English meetup for my level, please? Thank you very much. Best wishes. Bye.
Well, thank you very much, Mamin. You have very nice pronunciation. And I've never heard you speak in Spanish, but I wonder if you have a typical Pacense accent from Badajoz. I hope you do, because it's an accent that I like very much in Spanish. It reminds me of my time years ago in Extremadura. But your English pronunciation is really good, don't you think so, Craig?
It is good, and what I particularly liked about the way you speak, Mamin, is that you do speak a bit slowly and you leave pauses between your words, and that's a good thing because very often people at level A2, B1, and even above, they put between words and it sounds quite annoying. And you don't, and that's great because in time your fluency will improve and your speaking will be even better. So congratulations on your speaking. Well done.
Did you notice anything that Mamin could perhaps improve, Craig?
I noticed just a small thing, a preposition that was missing. They're quite difficult, aren't they, in English, prepositions? You said, Mamin, I want to work my listening skills. The phrasal verb is to work on something. So you need to put the preposition on after work. I want to work on my listening skills. I want to work on my pronunciation. I want to work on my grammar, etc.
And there's one other little thing. I think you said, Mamin, but I'm not sure, your competition exam, or perhaps it was the word comprehension. We're not quite sure because of the audio, but if you said competition exam, that doesn't exist. But I have a funny feeling you're talking about el examen de concurso público, and you've thought, oh, concurso is competition. Could that be right? In other words, the oposiciones. Is that what you're talking about? If that's so, I would call that state exam. That's oposiciones, those exams that you do to get a job with the state. State exams is what I would call those.
And we have two recommendations for you, Mamen, for practicing your English. First, online, if you use Facebook, there's a very good group on Facebook called The Chat Box. That's CHATBOX on Facebook. It's a lovely proactive community run by a lovely lady called Catty, and Eva as well is a moderator in the group. It's a very friendly, warm community, very welcoming online. You'll be able to contribute there and find people to speak to in English. The second thing, you said that you really enjoyed meeting people and practicing English in person. There's a website called meetup.com, MEETUP. If you go there and search for your area, so Badajoz and Inglés, you'll find all the meetups in your area for English. So remember to put English or Inglés in your search terms, and you'll find groups that are active in your area. And this is a worldwide website, so anybody can use this to find face-to-face meetups to practice English in your area. Meetup.com.
Craig, we have another voice message now from a bit further away than Badajoz. This is from Ecuador, and it's from Eric.
Although it's also connected to exams.
Hi, Reza and Craig. It's Eric from Ecuador. I hope you are doing well. I've been listening to your podcasts for almost 5 months, and they've been really useful for me. I've been studying to get the B2 certificate in Cambridge. However, I have some problems in listening to audios or conversations. When they talk very quickly, it's impossible to understand. And besides, please could you explain the use of for me or to me? I don't know when I say for me, it is for me or it is to me. Well, thank you so much for the great job you do. Bye-bye. Take care.
Well, thank you, Eric, for your message. It was lovely to hear from you. And Rezo, I didn't hear any mistakes. I thought that was an absolutely perfectly clear message that was absolutely correct.
I couldn't agree more. A very good message. Not only was it correct, but you had very good pronunciation and fluency, Eric. Well done.
So to address your first comment, you said that you are having problems with the listening for the Cambridge exam. We did do a podcast focusing on how to improve your listening skills. I think that may help you. So Eric, go to inglespodcast.com/256. Have a listen to that podcast. And if you have any more questions or doubts about how to improve your listening, send another message and let us know.
Okay, shall we have a look at what Eric asked us about, Craig? He said, what's the difference between for me and to me?
Yeah, well, for me, there could be some differences between when to use those two expressions.
Craig, what about a nice coffee and biscuit after this podcast?
Well, that sounds good to me.
It sounds good to Craig. It sounds good to me, he said. Craig, what do many people say about this podcast?
Well, many people write and send us messages and say that this podcast is very useful for them. So let's look at the differences with those two examples. If you use the preposition for, so for me, there's some benefit to you. In some way, you're benefited by it. It's allotted to you or it's given to you. For example, my wife went to a lot of trouble for me on my birthday. She organised a surprise party. The party was for me. It benefited me. Can you think of another example with for me, Reza?
Yes, an example of showing that something is allotted to you, assigned to you, could be, if that's for me, thank you very much. I'll take it. If that's for me, if that's been allotted, if that's been assigned to me, if that's for me, thanks very much. I'll take it.
Or if someone gives you a present and you say, oh, wow, is that for me? So it's benefiting you, it's being given to you. However, with the preposition to, it's more your personal thoughts on something that you're thinking about. For example, you can say, to me, she's an idiot. So that's really, in my opinion, she's an idiot. But it's not correct to say, for me, she's an idiot. So it's to my mind, in other words. To me, she's stupid or she's an idiot, for example.
Here's a rather topical example, I guess, living in the age of COVID-19 restrictions. Some people might say, this new virus suddenly spreading so easily seems very strange and suspicious to me. So, to me, at the end, is showing that's my personal thoughts. I've no evidence to say that it's suspicious, but I think, in my opinion, that it is. It spread so easily, very strange and suspicious to me.
So if you hear someone say, thanks for doing this for me, that's probably something nice, something positive. But if someone says, why did you do that to me? That's probably something bad. Why did you do that to me? So Eric, we hope that's clearer. Just try to remember that for means it benefits you in some way, for me, and to, it's more your personal opinion or thoughts on something. To me, it's a lovely podcast, for example.
And Craig, if a listener were to ask you, why are you doing this for me or for us, the podcast? Why are we doing it for them? You don't have to pay to listen to this podcast. So if a listener asked you, why are you doing this for me, Reza, Craig, what would you say?
Well, to me, it's nice to help people. Okay, let's move on to look at some expressions that should put you on your guard. Now, what do I mean by put you on your guard? Well, as Reza said at the beginning of the episode, if you're on your guard, you're careful, you're suspicious, you're wary of something. So sometimes in English, we have expressions that we say, and immediately I think, whoa, wait a minute. What's coming next? What is the person going to say next? Can you think of an example, Reza?
An expression that should perhaps put you on your guard is, I don't want to be rude, but the word but there is the key.
That's important, isn't it? The but. So to me, that means, to me, see, I use that without even thinking. To me, that means that something rude or impolite is about to be said, is going to be said. I don't want to be rude, but...
Sometimes instead of the verb to be, people will say, I don't want to seem rude, or I don't want to appear rude, which really gives you more of a clue. Think about it. I don't want to appear or seem, parecer in Spanish. So they're saying, yes, I'm warning you that this might appear rude. Oh, but of course it's not. But then that gives you the excuse to be rude. So if you're just directly rude to someone, that seems very rude. But if you add this little expression beforehand, like, I don't want to appear to seem to be rude. Oh, don't let the appearance fool you. And then you really can be rude. And you've already excused yourself. That's key. So that's why we sometimes use the word seem or appear. But you can also use the word be. So, or you can even say, I don't mean M-E-A-N, because mean is to have the intention. So I don't mean, it's not my intention, I don't mean to be rude. I don't want to seem rude. I don't mean to appear rude, but, and then here comes the rude part.
So let's think of a situation where this might be used. Imagine Reza invites you to dinner at his flat and he cooks a lovely roast chicken. And you sit down to eat and you look at the chicken, and Reza spent hours preparing this lovely roast meal for you, and you say, Reza, I don't want to be rude, but I can't eat this. I'm a vegetarian. Can you think of another example?
Let's use the verb appear instead of be. I don't want to appear rude, Craig, but I'm afraid I can't accept your gift. Craig's bought me a gift, but I can't accept it because, to be honest, it's a pair of shoes and they're not the right size. So there's not much point, So I don't want to appear rude, but I'm afraid I can't accept your gift, Craig, because I would only have to take it back to the shop anyway. The shoes aren't going to fit me.
But why would these expressions put you on your guard? Well, very often we do the opposite of what the expression suggests. So if I want to say that Reza's talking bullshit, but I don't want to offend him, I can soften my criticism by saying, Reza, I don't want to seem rude, but I can't listen to any more of your bullshit. I'm actually being rude, but saying I don't want to be rude, I don't want to seem rude, tries to soften what you're going to say next.
And believe me, people often do say or at least think this when I'm talking, and I can well understand.
Another similar expression you could hear with this kind of meaning behind it is respectfully, beginning a sentence with respectfully, comma, or with respect, or even with the greatest respect. Can you think of an example?
What about this? Imagine you've explained something to somebody, but they keep disagreeing with you or they don't seem to understand what you're trying to say. You might say, respectfully, you may not have got the point. I'm not saying you're stupid, but I've explained it to you. You don't seem to accept it. Respectfully, you may not have got the point. To get the point is to understand something.
Or imagine you want to disagree with someone and you want to say that someone is wrong. With respect, I have to say you're wrong. Now imagine the relationship between a student and a teacher, or the relationship between a worker and the worker's boss. So when you're speaking to someone of higher authority and you're criticizing, then you need to soften it with one of these expressions. With the greatest respect, sir, I have to say you're wrong about this. And also, if you want to tell someone they're talking a load of rubbish, then with respect, you're talking a load of rubbish, which tries to soften the insult or the possible insult to the person. Another expression which is similar, I mean no disrespect, but. And when you hear that but, as Reza said before, you need to be really careful because what is coming next is probably something quite strong.
And what we've got coming next are several expressions which are all with the word but. They pretty much all mean the same thing. They're to warn the person not to be offended. So you've got 4 or 5 variations. You could say, please don't be offended, but. Or, no offense meant, but. Remember we talked about the word to mean is to have the intention, yeah? So, no offense meant, but. Or another one, please don't take offense, but. Or here's another variation, I don't mean to offend you, but. So they're the perfect expressions to use, particularly if what you're about to say could be interpreted as offensive. So you've excused yourself in advance.
Reza, no offence meant, but that dress you're wearing does nothing for you. I love the colour, but it's much too short.
I couldn't agree more. In fact, I'm not sure any dress would do anything for me, because dress, listener, is vestidos. Yeah, vestido is a dress. Los vestidos, dresses. So no dress that I can wear, I think, would do anything for me.
That's just an example. Reza isn't really wearing a dress. He's wearing a skirt and a blouse.
Yes, I never wear dresses.
He's wearing a skirt today.
Yeah, it's quite hot, so it's a mini skirt. Oh dear, for many people now, you've just turned off the podcast. No, please come back. Please don't turn off the podcast. You've just thought of me in a mini skirt and you're not listening anymore.
Please don't be offended and keep listening. Another example, please don't be offended, but you haven't got a clue what you're talking about. Now, if I tell someone they haven't got a clue what they're talking about, they're talking rubbish, that's quite strong language, isn't it? And again, if your relationship isn't very informal and close with the person, you need to soften it with something like, please don't be offended, but I think blah, blah, blah.
Imagine a student said to me, Reza, tomorrow I do C1 exam, English. I would say, listen, Pepe, please don't take offense, but you need to improve your pronunciation if you're going to do the C1 exam. Please don't take offence, but you need to improve your pronunciation.
I think all the Peppers listening have just become offended. Something that used to be said to me quite often when I used to go to clubs in the UK. Craig, I don't mean to offend you, but I don't think you should dance in public again.
Do you know, Craig, I've never had the pleasure of seeing you dance. Are you a terrible dancer?
You've never seen me dance?
No.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad. Yeah, I can offend people with my dancing.
Let's move on to our next expression, a very common one. Don't take this the wrong way, but, there's that word but again, yeah? Don't take this the wrong way, but your suggestion isn't very good.
So when you say the wrong way, you mean in a negative way, in a bad way. Don't take this in a bad way, in a negative way. Imagine you're having a discussion or maybe even an argument and another person decides to join in and contribute to the discussion. You could say, listen, don't take this the wrong way, but you should stay out of this. Stay out of this discussion. Stay out of this argument. It's nothing to do with you. Don't take this the wrong way, but you'd better not say anything here.
The last expression, or rather group of expressions we've got for you, are related to what we've been saying.
Not exactly the same, perhaps, but
they're
similar.
not exactly the same, yeah. These are more expressions to warn the person that I'm about to be very frank. That would be franco or franca in Spanish. I'm about to be very frank. So I'm not necessarily going to say something that might offend you. It's not that, but I'm going to say the truth unfiltered. There'll be no filter on this. You may not want to hear what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's for that type of situation.
Reza, do you think we should go to the beach and swim in the sea after this podcast?
To be honest, that's the worst idea I've heard all day.
So at the moment you're being honest, but you normally aren't.
It sounds like
it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To be honest, yeah, I'm being honest now, but I'm usually not. But it's an expression that's very, very common. And instead of saying to be honest, you can say to be frank. For example, to be frank, I'd rather go to a restaurant than eat your mum's cooking. That's something that was said to me many years ago because my mum was a terrible cook. To be frank, or even to be quite frank, I'd rather go to a restaurant than eat your mum's cooking.
Craig, did you sleep all right last night?
Not too bad. Why?
But you weren't ill or anything like that.
No.
Okay, well, honestly, I think you should find a new hairdresser. Because it looks like somebody's roughed you up. Looks like somebody's beaten you up or you've been ill or something like that. So, honestly, that's my expression. I could also say to be honest, to be frank. Honestly, I think you should find a new hairdresser because your hair like that just does not suit you.
Well, to be honest, since the start of the pandemic, I've been cutting my hair myself. I bought one of those electric razors and I've been cutting my hair at home. That's why it looks so bad. So Reza there used the adverb honestly, and you can also use frankly as the adverb of frank. So an example is, frankly, I think we should pay a professional designer and not create the logo ourselves.
Is that what you thought whenever the English podcast logo was created?
Yes, because I'm not a designer. I have no idea how to use the tools and the software to create logos. So, frankly, I thought it was better to pay somebody to create the logo. It made more sense, to be honest.
Craig, if I were to quote a famous line from a famous film, I wonder if you could guess what film it is.
Try me.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
That was said by Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind.
You got it.
Which, if you're a Spanish speaker, Gone with the Wind is...
Lo que se llevó el viento.
Lo que se lleva el viento. Gone with the Wind, yeah. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. And we'll include a short clip of that scene in the show notes. And you can find the show notes at inglespodcast.com/377. So what have we learned this episode? We've spoken about how to use to me and for me. What's the difference between to me and for me? And we looked at some expressions to put you on your guard. Reza, no offence, my friend, but I think that was a really bad podcast.
You think so? To me, it was a really useful one.
Yeah, I thought maybe we helped people. It wasn't too bad. And now it's your turn to practice your English. We'd love to hear from you, so why don't you send us a voice message? You can do that by going to speakpipe.com, that's speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast. Reza, how can people contact us by email?
If you want to send an email, you could get me at the following address, belfastreza@gmail.com, or you could get Craig. He's at craig@inglespodcast.com.
If you're looking for a paid English course to improve your level of English, go to store.mencioningles.net, where you'll see a whole range of material and courses to help you with your English.
As ever, we'd like to thank all the people who are helping us through the Patreon scheme. That's spelled Patreon. And what they do is donate as little as $1.20 per month. That includes VAT. The 20 cents is for the value added tax. And they get instant access to recent audio transcriptions. If you're interested, why not check it out? There's a link in the show notes. It's www.patreon.com/Inglespodcast. And we'd like to thank every single sponsor, but we can't. There isn't enough time. But what we can do is say thank you and welcome to our most recent Patreon sponsors who've joined this month. And they are?
They are Edgar Velandia, Ricardo Sendulski, Diana Carolina Martinez Mendez, Floriano Blanco Rodriguez, and Isaac Baena Garcia. Thank you to you, and thank you to all of our wonderful Patreon supporters. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please remember to tell your friends so that more people can listen and we can expand our audience. Reza, what's next week?
Next week we've got 10 national parks we'd like to visit.
I'll look forward to visiting those with you, with all of you. So until next time, thank you for listening this week. It's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
The music in this podcast is by Pids. The track is called See You Later.